All right, hello everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Happy here today to present our last webinar of 2018. We have Dr. Mallory Leduc, our postdoctoral research fellow, who is going to be presenting on knowledge transfer kits. So many people that are online right now may be aware of what the project entails. Mallory today will give us an update and progress on that project right now. So her presentation, I think she'll keep it nice and short for us today, around 20 minutes. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to use the chat button, and I'll write them down as we go, and we'll present them to her at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll invite Mallory to get us started.
All right, hello everyone, and thank you for everyone here in the lab and also those who are joining online. So today I'll be talking about the project that I'm working on as part of my postdoctoral research fellowship with CROSH. I've been tasked with collating and developing knowledge transfer toolkits for our research center, focused on Northern Ontario industries, but also that would have application beyond as well. And focusing again on mobile equipment hazards, and trying to understand some of the hazards that are present within the industries, again, that we serve. How can we educate the workers better on these hazards? So as mentioned, our main focus is on Northern Ontario industries, as that is the catchment area that our research center serves. But again, many of these industries are found obviously across Canada and around the world. But what makes these industries challenging for both workers and occupational health and safety specialists and researchers is the dynamic work site nature of these work sites. That again allow the workers to every day have new work environments and changing dynamics, not only again from shift to shift, but also as the shift progresses. These workers are also having to work long hours and shift work schedules. They have to endure seasonal changes. So obviously in Northern Ontario, we have 4 seasons and have distinct temperature and precipitation differences that would influence potentially the ground conditions for these workplaces. Also, our site locations may be remote, rural, not necessarily within communities, but require travel. And then there's the impact of innovation and mechanization on these industries. So again, this is where the introduction of mobile equipment comes in for these workers that are within these industries. Which again, leading now to the occupational hazards then as a result of these, the increase in mechanization that we will have a look at. Specifically within, when we look at the actual work site, specifically coming down a level from the industry, we see that there is the interaction between on-foot workers and mobile equipment that are operating together within the same location. So whether that's within the mine or within a construction site, we are having this interaction of mobile equipment and also workers that are working around it, and may also be pedestrians, again, if we're thinking construction here. These workers are also working within constrained spaces. So again, thinking of underground mines, you obviously have tight and narrow drifts or ramps that you're working within. But again, even in forestry or construction, if you're having different people working within the mobile equipment, but then also around it, completing other job tasks, you do still have a constrained space that the workers are trying to manage their locations within. We have different workers trying to complete various work tasks at the same time. So as mentioned, the on-foot workers who are working around the mobile equipment may be focused on and busy completing work tasks that are different from the objectives of the tasks that the worker within the mobile equipment operator is trying to accomplish. Again, these workers are working shift work schedules and also potentially the effects of commuting on their fatigue going forward. So the approach that we are taking with these toolkits is an occupational health education approach. And these are designed to improve workers' knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors regarding hazardous workplace exposures that are associated with occupational disease. So for us, I'll go through in a minute, but we, again, are trying to improve the awareness and the education of the workers to try and, again, improve their attitudes and hopefully lead them to work in a more safe way. Based on past research that we have completed, and I've completed as part of my PhD in rural and northern health, was highlighting the focused effort on content development, which is what part of this project is really trying to capture in assessing whether literacy levels or first language spoken or the age of the population, what are the demographics of the workplaces that we're trying to educate, and how can we take those strategies and make the content and education related to occupational health relevant and at a level that is digestible for them. We're also trying to understand the contextual differences within the industries and as best we can at the workplace level. So again, how can we understand the size of the workplaces, the location of the workplaces, integrating their shift schedules and unique characteristics of their work sites? How can we put that incorporate that into our education strategies, again, to ensure success for the workplaces and the workers? Also, the partnership and involvement in the process was important. That was highlighted in past research, and again, that we want to continue for this project. So I'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, but this is an area where we would love feedback from all of our stakeholders and industry partners to be a part of the process in the development and piloting of the education programs, but also going forward to help with the dissemination of it as well. And then lastly, practical outcomes. So here we want our recommendations. We want the positive impact of our education to be desirable for the worker, desirable for the workplace, again, to increase the knowledge in a practical way for the workers and make the workplaces safer. So the first three knowledge transfer toolkits that CROSH is embarking on are related to the line of sight, fatigue management, and vibration. So I thought I would kind of illustrate the example with vibration, but also go through what we are proposing for each of the hazards identified, and discuss how, in relation to operating mobile equipment, that will be going forward. So for each of the topics, they will include safety meeting presentations. So we're designing them to be approximately 10 to 15 minutes in length for our initial pilot version. So again, we've seen that the feedback that we've received based on past projects was that it was easier to integrate a shorter, more condensed version and potentially more often presentation as opposed to one longer session within the occupational health and safety systems that we had been a part of before. So again, this is an area that may be changed in the future if feedback tells us otherwise, but for our initial pilot, we will have them about 10 to 15 minutes. The content will be delivered based on principles of adult learning, which supports that learners are autonomous, self-directed, they bring life experience and knowledge, and are goal and relevancy oriented and need to be shown respect. So again, here we are trying to, again, incorporate theory into that to ensure that the workers and the content, again, is delivered in a way that is relevant to their workforce. For each of the modules, there'll be a leader's guidebook to walk through the content of the presentation. We'll also include sample questions and provide the suggested structure for the overall implementation schedule. So again, we want to make it as easy as possible for the workplace and the occupational health and safety representative or specialist that is providing this content to the workers, and make it flow as seamless as possible within the existing structures that they already have. We also have hazard identification safety check cards. These will be developed to assess the occupational hazard that we're targeting. So there'll be 5 questions, and they'll be designed to provide the opportunity for workers and supervisors or the manager to engage in a dialogue about vibration or line of sight or fatigue that is specific to the worker's area that they're actually working on, or the job task that they're actually doing that shift. So again, from previous research, we've seen the support of managers and supervisors have been highlighted within occupational health and safety programs. So again, another way that we can try and create dialogue between the different levels of what is actually going on within the workplace. Each of the education modules will also have a poster to present the key messages as a visual reminder around the work sites. So a total of 3 posters will be created for each hazard to reinforce the messaging that the workers receive during the education sessions. So we know that knowledge gains are supported through receiving repeated exposure to new information. So again, another way that, that the workers can then again see the messaging, be reinforced of the knowledge or the positive attitude toward the control strategy, and serve as a reminder. We're also hoping to incorporate an interactive technology component within each of the modules to have, again, increase the knowledge and the skill acquisition of our workers, and provide an interactive and engaging tool that the workers can utilize to further their education around it. All right, so the first one I'll go through an example of, and again, to not kind of belabor all of them, but show you what we are planning to do for rolling out each of the knowledge transfer toolkits. So for all of them, we'll be tailoring the content specific to each of the industries. So we're aiming to do mining, construction, forestry, pulp and paper, and steel manufacturing. So for each industry, each of the toolkits will be designed to address the unique pieces of mobile equipment that are found within each of the industries, and address the potential working conditions that the workers would face. So for example, for vibration, we are looking at whole body vibration through, again, the operation of mobile equipment. So, for example, we provide the definition. So mechanical vibration is transmitted into the whole body through the hips, thighs, buttocks region, through the seated operation of mobile equipment vehicles. So that is what we are targeting from our past vibration toolkit. We had addressed hand, arm, and foot as well, but the focus of these new toolkits will be exclusively on whole body vibration. So then, for example, if we look at what we would then tailor out for the mining industry, based on past research, we know that surface haulage trucks, underground load haul dump trucks, bulldozers, graders, locomotives, drilling off a wooden platform and metal raised platforms all have documented exposures above the health guidance caution zone. So based on past research, this is where we are finding, and based on past vibration measurement, this is where we are finding the evidence for the pieces of equipment that we will be targeting for our vibration education modules. So just to provide an overview of, again, what the vibration one would look like, or to give you an example. So module 1 would be introduction to vibration exposure in the workplace. And then some of the key objectives that we would go through would be what are the types of vibration exposure in the workplace, what would be an introduction to whole body vibration, some of the, and then some of the impacts on health. So again, trying to keep it relatively short so that there are a few key points and a few digestible things that the workers are able to take with them and remember. And then again, we would have all the corresponding materials that would then help to remind, and that could be reviewed in order to ensure that they're aware of whole body vibration and what that means for themselves. So then we move on for module 2 would be related to control strategies. So again, trying to teach the workers about a little bit about the hierarchy of controls, and then for them to try and think of what control strategies that they can do. So how can we provide practical solutions that the workers have that would be within their own control? So something related to purchasing of equipment may not be within the control of the actual worker, but discussing those options with them may help to facilitate those conversations in the long run, but then also discussing the control strategies related to their equipment and vibration that they can control. So whether it's through the adjustment of seat or trying their best to sit in a neutral posture. Module 3 would we look at ergonomics in driving. So again, looking at low back pain as the #1 cause of injury related to whole body vibration during the operation of mobile equipment. But then looking at, again, how can the mobile equipment operators, how can they change their driving strategies to try and reduce their overall vibration exposure? And again, trying to keep those within the control of the actual workers, and strategies that they're able to implement within that shift that they actually learn the information on. We'd also have an optional 4th module that would look at vibration measurement. So this would go a step further and would look at learning how to actually assess vibration exposure within the workplace and how you would go about measuring whole body vibration. So we would look at educating on control strategies, but then allowing the either the workers or the health and safety specialists to then document the vibration exposure both before the strategy and then after the strategy to see how effective that control strategy was. So we, again, moving on for line of sight, these will be designed to increase the awareness of a poor line of sight associated with the operation of mobile equipment and provide evidence-based practices for preventing struck by accidents. So again, we will we'll have the same format where we'll have line of sight issues and working around mobile equipment for on-foot workers for the same 5 industries. And again, highlighting the line of sight issues for equipment that is commonly found within those industries. So here's what we're proposing the line of sight one will look like. Module 1 will be understanding what is line of sight and why, again, why is it important and why do we need to know about it? What do workers need to understand about how it can be measured and monitored? Module 2 will look at understanding the space around them, so knowing your space and what affects the line of sight. So what are the conditions within the workplace or within the environment that can change the line of sight, and where or are there best practices for positioning yourself around the pieces of equipment? So again, here we're trying to also tailor this to the equipment and tailor this really to the industries as well to get the most benefit for the workers. Lastly, module 3 will be knowing the operator. So how the operator drives the machine and what do we know from past research on where they're most commonly looking. So what are some lessons that we can learn from there on how we can educate workers to be, again, operating in these constrained locations and interacting with mobile equipment. Lastly, our fatigue management will be designed to educate and engage our workers regarding control strategies for fatigue mitigation. So here we'll be focusing on sleep as the main contributor to fatigue in the workplace. So we'll see from module 1 will be our introduction to fatigue. So what is fatigue? What do workers need to know about the signs and symptoms and the main contributing factors that would lead to a worker being fatigued at their job? Module 2 would look at sleep. So what are current sleep guidelines? Teaching the workers about the difference between sleep opportunity and sleep obtained. So going into that a little bit further, and then also what would be some best practices for how they can get the most and best sleep possible. The last module will look at alertness strategies, so understanding our circadian rhythm and how we all have times of peak awake and peak sleepiness, and how this would impact and work either with or against the shift scheduling that you, or shift rotation that you would be on. And also looking at fatigue monitoring and helping workers and the workplace look at ways that they are able to monitor their fatigue. So going forward, we are looking for partnership and involvement in this pilot phase of our toolkit. So we are looking for stakeholders and members of our target industries to volunteer their time or their workplace and their perspective to help us ensure that our toolkits meet the needs of our industries and are meeting the needs of our workers. So we are seeking to gather input and feedback, and having organizations pilot test our education material in exchange for providing us the feedback on our program. So just as a quick example of what that may look like, again, that it wouldn't be a huge extensive involvement, but that we would like to have obviously a quick meeting before the education would be rolled out, that you would have the modules rolled out within your workplace, maybe a quick chat in the middle to see how it's going, if there's any feedback that you would have, and then you'd have your final module, and then after would provide feedback on successes, failures, feedback from your workers as far as the education you received. But then also we were looking for the feedback from the workplace on how it was the ease of implementation and rollout that way as well. So for to speak with me or anyone else at CROSH for further partnership with that, then I would welcome you to contact myself through email, or the general CROSH one email as well, and we'll get in contact that way. To look at ways that we can move this forward and help increase the awareness of these occupational exposures for workers with working with mobile equipment. So, thank you.
Mallory, give it a couple minutes to see if there's any questions from our online audience. I'm not seeing anything right now. We'll give them a minute to post something.
Yeah, no problem. I guess I could also mention we are hoping to have the vibration one. I guess I didn't quite mention. We're hoping to launch them in succession. So we're hoping to have the vibration one up and running first, with the anticipation that it'll be ready to go within workplaces in January. And then shortly after, the fatigue and line of sight modules will be coming available for pilot testing shortly after that. So there is still a little bit of a lag time between now and when they are available for pilot testing, as we get the final versions, vetted, edited, revised, and printed off ready for pilot testing. And then once we have the pilot test for all of our modules, we'll then again edit, revise as needed based on the industry feedback, and then they'll be available to everyone following that time period.
Great. So we have an online question. What interactive technology are you referring to?
Well, we're still in the development stages of all of them, but for each of them, for the vibration one, we're hoping to have the vibration app. So through the iPod Touch, there is a free app that you're able to measure your full body vibration with. So we're hoping to provide the education on how you would go about using that app to assess your vibration within your workplace. We've designed an additional education session booklet that would go along with that for vibration. For line of sight, we're working on several different components right now related to the virtual reality and how we can go about interacting with different tools that would allow for the education of when a worker would be seated within a piece of mobile equipment. Could the individuals be seen depending on where they're standing, and look at the education for blind spots around that. So that will be hopefully within some sort of application. Again, still working to be developed with computer science. As far as the fatigue monitoring interactive component, we're thinking again that it'll be another app, potentially some sort of vigilance test or fatigue scale that we would have the workers assess themselves or whatnot. But again, all of the, regardless of the tool, we're again trying to use it as a way to enhance the education, get it in the hands of the workers, and see if they're able to assess their own levels, assess their own status, and then again that we would provide the supporting education that would go along with those tools.
Now, so as far as partnerships with this for this project, are we considering partnerships with other agencies, regulators, health and safety associations?
Yeah, so we are. Right now, if you're a part of any of those, for sure, reach out to us. In the development of this, we're not necessarily excluding anyone as far as participation in development. And then we're hoping that the end goal would be, yes, to be distributed through other health and safety associations once we have the final versions.
Is feedback limited to Ontario?
No, so I guess no. We are again focusing on these industries, but as I said, these industries are across Canada. So it's not necessarily that it has to be Ontario. We would be welcome to any regions, because most of the equipment would be the same across, and that's sort of where the main issues are in that relation. So.
And so last one, how long are the modules?
Okay, so the modules would be, like, as far as the safety presentations would be 10 to 15 minutes for each session. So then each one is 3 modules, so roughly half an hour of safety meeting presentation content. But then you also would have the additional posters, hazard identification cards, and other interactive tools or technology, and any such education that would go along with that. So I really see it as you could expand it to be longer, really, if you wanted, or combine it all in one session. Again, finding out what would work best within your organization and trying to tailor it as best you can that way.
Okay, I think that wraps it up. Thanks, Mal.
All right.
So I just want to thank everyone that came here today to listen to Mallory's presentation. Thank you for